Though the nations rage, kingdoms rise and fall, there is still one King reigning over all. So I will not fear, for this truth remains, that my God is the Ancient of Days.
All right. Welcome. Hold on one second. Hey, we've got some feedback. Either Lisa Joy or Eric. If you've got Facebook on. Is that you, Terry? Yeah, that's you, Terry. You can't play that because then.
Oops.
Yeah.
You can't have them both open.
You can't have them both over because it's feeding back. All right.
Makes sense.
As long as it's muted.
Yeah.
It's
So
all right.
we're live now. We're live. Welcome
everybody.
to the Bible study. Welcome. It is James here, Lisa Joy and Eric up at the top, Terry at the bottom. The Bible study tonight, switch over to the text, Matthew 24, the Olivet Discourse. It is Matthew 24. If you have your Bibles, please turn to Matthew 24. We're going to walk through Matthew 24 together. Here's the main theme. The main theme is this: Jesus is coming back. He is coming back. That is the main thing. He is coming back. Muhammad is dead. He is not coming back. Buddha is dead. Buddha is not coming back. Nobody who died and was buried is coming back. Jesus is the only one who is coming back. Let me kick it out to the group. Main theme: Jesus is coming back. And so here's why I chose to do this, to go through this. Here's why I chose to go through this. You're going to have a lot of people who are going to talk about a lot of apocalyptic things. And so we as believers, we need to be educated so we are not fooled. And going to fall for a bunch of stuff we shouldn't. So what's the best way to do it? Educate ourselves on what the Bible actually says. Now, I will say this. I'm going to say this. We don't know when he's coming back. Okay? Let me speak for myself. I don't know when Jesus is really coming back. Do any of you on the panel know for certain when Jesus is coming back?
Nope.
Absolutely not.
No.
Okay. Yeah, I don't either. So let's just get that out the way now. We don't know when Jesus is really coming back. We may know the season, but we are not absolutely 100% sure when Jesus is coming back. So let's get into it. Jesus is coming back. Let me first acknowledge those who are logged in. Hello, Jim Anderson. Hello, Barb Paul. Lee, hello, Vinay. I think this is our first time here. Welcome, Vinay. Terry, just simply say hi to everyone. Lynn, hope you're feeling better. Lena, hello. My wife, May. Hello, Eric is saying hello. Chad M, I think he's in Indiana. Hello, Chad. Oma, you know what? I was about to say, I don't know no Lamar. Oma, you need to switch that up. I was about to kick you off of here, Oma. So I know that's you. John, hello. Barb, hello. Linda Anderson. Linda is here. Praise God. She's here. Okay, let's go. I'm looking at this. Let's go. I'm going to take it from the group and kick it to the... I'm going to kick this out. I think there's a typo when I'm looking at this. But Matthew 1.
24, you mean?
Matthew, oh yeah, that's what it is. I messed up. Let me kick back. It's Matthew, actually, I see what it is. It's Matthew 24, verse 1. Right? It's Matthew 24, verse 1. I had 24 originally. So it is chapter Matthew 24, verse 1. Here we go. Matthew 21. And even that just left, went out and departed. Is that right in you guys' Bible? 24:1.
I
Think-
can't see it.
And Jesus went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples, right?
Yes.
That's right.
Okay. For some reason, that's not matching up with this. I don't know what it is. Maybe I printed in the wrong thing. Okay, let's go. The Olivet Discourse. Why is it called the Olivet Discourse? Jesus sits on the Mount of Olives and gives his discourse on the end times. Matthew 24, verse 1. And Jesus went out and departed from the temple. And his disciples came to him for to shew. Oh, yeah, here it is. I think I put the wrong verse up in the thing, but that's okay. Showed him the buildings of the temple. And Jesus said unto them, see ye, I put the King James, I apologize. See ye not these things? Verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Verse 3, it's the King James Version, I think. And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privately, saying, tell us when shall these things be, and what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? And Jesus answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. For many shall come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and shall deceive many. Let me kick it out to the group here. I just want to highlight some things here. Look at verse 2. He answers, see that no one you will see all these things. Do not. Truly I say unto you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will be thrown down. Jesus actually gives a prophecy about the temple. The Jews had one thing they had pride in, that beautiful temple. Beautiful, beautiful big temple. And as they're leaving, the disciple says, hey, look at this. Jesus says, you think that's beautiful? One day it's all going to come tumbling down to the ground. Tumbling down to the ground. And then he says this in verse 3. I'm reading ESV, so I'm going to switch back and forth from the ESV and the King James. As he said on the Mount of Olives, the disciples said to him privately, tell us, when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and of the close of the age? Jesus then, let me kick it back out, kick it to the text now. I got my bearings now. Jesus now, the first thing is he's going to talk about deception concerning the second coming. And verse 4, see that no one leads you astray, right? See that no one deceive you and lead you astray. Verse 5, for many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. So when he comes out, kicking it back out to the group, when talking about his second coming, Jesus brings up the issue of deception. Be careful. Deception will be huge. Deception will be real. Watch out. There's going to be a lot of deception. Lots and lots and lots of deception circling his second coming. Lots and lots of deception. All right, kicking it out to the group. What say ye? Anything. Lynn McGowan, as you look at it, Lynn McGowan says this, very interesting. The first thing Jesus warns about is deception as a sign of his coming. That is right, Lynn. He talks about being deceived when it comes this second coming, because I think a lot of people are going to be, it's going to be a huge upheaval, and then it's going to go to his second coming, deception. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
The thing about deception is that it takes an element of truth.
Oh yeah, good deception.
It's
yes.
very, and I remember, dealing with, some unhealthy people in my life. It's like, but they said this and they said this,
Yeah.
and there's something that just doesn't sit well. It's kind of like watching the news sometimes, and you go, if this is true, then why this? And there's an element of truth to it to make you, and that's what Satan did in the garden, questioning God and making us question the truth.
Yeah, and he mixed in enough truth for the lies to be palatable.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he does that. Yeah. Anything else as I go on?
That's already started.
Yeah.
Oh, the false Christ.
And as it applies to us, as it applies to the church,
Mm. Oh,
it's already started. So
yeah.
We got to be on guard.
Yeah.
We got to be on.
Yep. Absolutely. Kick it back to the text. Kick it back to the text. Look at what he does as we go into verse 6. Jesus is going to talk about what? World events. Events that's going to take place on the world stage. And these are things that I don't think could have been applicable back in Jesus' time. Because what was going on in Jerusalem, they had no idea what was going on in Athens or Sparta or Rome or anywhere else. So look at it. Jesus is going to talk about world events. Look at verse 6.
Sure about that?
Not immediately. No, it took some time to travel.
It was too far away. But
Too far away. They
it
knew.
was on a trade route. I mean,
Yeah, but it still took some time.
yeah.
And then again, I'm not sure what was going on in Jerusalem. I'll kick it back out to the group. I'm not sure what was going on in Jerusalem was ever reported in Britain, right? Or in Beijing. And remember, they had a whole continent they didn't even know about yet, right? So, but what's going to happen is going to happen. I don't think there's any more undiscoverable continents now in 2020. I think we've pretty much figured all of the land continents out, right? So I think that's what the context is. Okay, let me kick it back to the text. Look at verse 6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines and pestilence and earthquakes and divers places. The ESV, divers places, it says in various places. There's going to be earthquakes all over. Verse 8, all these are the beginnings of sorrows. Then shall they deliver you up to be afflicted, and shall kill you. And ye shall be hated of all nations for my name's sake. And then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another. Kicking it back to the group from the text. All these things, verse 8, all these things are the beginning of birth pains. And he says after verse 7 about nation rising up against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines, earthquakes, various places. This is just the beginning. And then they shall deliver you up in tribulation and put you to death. You'll be hated specifically for the name of Christ. And what's happening, I think, in verses 9 and 10, delivering you up for tribulation, verse 10, and then many, and the ESV says this, and then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another. I think he's talking about those within the church are going to fall away. They're going to fall away. You thought they were true believers, but they're not. They're not. Question, comments as I kick it out. Scour the live chat here. Anyone?
Well, I was, and many will turn away from, here's the way my Bible says it, away from me and betray and hate each other.
Yeah.
And he said in the church, but isn't it interesting? I mean, even now I've been just, I guess not surprised, but just the number of people telling on each other for not wearing a mask or for,
throwing football in the front yard.
Yeah. And it's just, and they think they're doing a good duty. That's somewhere else in the Bible too.
No,
they're
it's
doing a good thing.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And how easy it is that when people are afraid, I think that's the trigger in most cases.
Yeah.
Betraying other people is not a big deal, I guess.
No, there's not. I remember that first Sunday after Trump, we actually met. Someone actually sent me a nasty little email on Facebook saying, Why are you having church? You're killing your parishioners. Yada 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 yada. And in my flesh, I was going to respond, but I pressed delete, and I didn't respond to her. So, but Lynn McGowan says a little leaven leavens the whole lump. Lee is right. Lee, agreed, Lisa. I'll add fear to that. When people are fearful or easily deceived. I think people who are fearful are easily deceived. You're right, Lee. You're right. Chad has a good one. Rat poison is 99% good, 1% poison. It only takes 1% to kill. Deception is the same, in my opinion. Absolutely right, Chad. I think if Satan will give a lot of ground on a lot of issues, but if he can get you on the main one, who Jesus is, he'll give you the rest. He'll give you the rest. And it takes some discernment to know what are the non-negotiables, right? What is that 1% that will kill? John says the message of this age is deceit and confusion. Jesus is just warming up here. Oh yeah, he is, John. He's warming up. Mm-hmm. So, anyone else in the panel? Anything else?
There's something else that's been happening a lot more recently. Even just last week was earthquakes.
Earthquakes?
No,
Really?
I called, and this was, last week, and then the week before that, there was one, and they were hardly even on the news.
Yeah.
But last week was Idaho. I called my friend. She said, yeah. She said it's good. It was,
and it was a 6.5. It wasn't
small.
a small one.
It was big.
6.5.
Yeah. And even a few years back, we had one here, and I was like, I remember waking up. It was like 3 or 4 in the morning, and I just think these things years ago it was just California had them, Japan had them. There were certain places, but now it's like all over the place, and they're not even making big news anymore.
It's okay if California get them, but
but then they only get 1 or 2. The last 2 or 3 years they've had 2 or 3. They had a big one, Italy. No, I don't know.
Yeah, they have them all the time in Japan. I remember after going to Japan the first time, and I was really sick the first summer I went, and I was staying at the church just after laying down, and there was a tremor that went through, and you could see the walls move. Yeah. I was like, oh my gosh, because they don't make their houses like we do. They make them so that they can bend. Yeah. That's terrifying.
Yeah. Verse 11. Earthquakes are various places. Verse 11. And many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. The ESV reads verse 12 this way. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. The love of many will grow cold. Let me kick it out to the group. Before we go any further, I got to talk about this love growing cold. I remember, and here's when I remember America was in trouble. And here's when I said, oh God, what is going on? It was when they showed Project Veritas. James O'Keefe showed those babies being murdered and sold for money, and the people at Planned Parenthood saying and doing nothing. And I was like, finally we have enough to shut Planned Parenthood down.
Not this week.
No. Not only did they not shut it down, they actually passed a bill and gave them $500 million. I remember. And that was the first time Trump signed it, and he gave Planned Parenthood another $500 million after that video came out. And I got so sick, and I was like, how could you look at an abortion and look at this and think that this is okay? How is that not the poster board, the poster child for the love of many growing cold, that there was not an outrage that they burned Planned Parenthood to the ground?
No, and that you're going to go after the whistleblower.
The whistleblower. Oh, he was prosecuted.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Got an update on that. They threw out some of the charges and added another one. And he's basically
I saw that.
telling the truth.
Yep. Verse 13. But he that shall endure to the end, the same shall be saved. He that endures to the end, the same shall be saved. The ESV says, but the one who endures to the end will be saved. Deception in the church is going to happen again and again and again and again. Unfortunately, it will. Verse 14, and this gospel of the kingdom shall be preached in all the world for a witness unto all nations, and then shall the end come. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place. Whoso is here, let him understand. Now, let me kick it out to the group. I think we have to look at 10 through 15 very carefully. Right? Here's what I'm going to say, and then I'll open it up to the group. Here's what I'm going to say. Look at the progression. Falling away in verse 10. False prophets will arise and lead men astray in verse 11. Then he says in verse 12, and because lawlessness will increase, the love of many shall grow cold. But then he says, verse 13, but the one who endures to the end shall be saved. Look at 14 and 15. And this gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations, and then the end will come. 14 is very pivotal. Look at it. A lot of times when I read this, I was like, yes, for the last 2,000 years, the gospel was proclaimed throughout the whole world. I don't think he's talking about the last 2 years. I think he's talking about a specific incident in a specific period of time. What is he? Remember, what is the question he's answering? The disciples says way back up at the beginning, what did they say? Disciples came to him and pointed him out these buildings. They said, Lord, when will these things, tell us when will these things be, and what will be the sign of your coming and the closing of the age? I think verse 14 is talking about specifically a 3.5 year period where these two beings, these two persons will be in Jerusalem. They will preach. They will do miraculous signs. It will be bridging the church age, grafting back with the nation of Israel. I think so that's when 144,000 will come back. And in that 3.5 year, I think the gospel will be preached to the entire world through those two men who are up there when there's one world government. Remember, because the tribulation is 7 years. The first 3.5, you're going to have those two witnesses. And I think he's talking about, and this is the gospel of the kingdom will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations. And I think that's what he's talking about. And then the end will come. Because at the death of those two men, what's going to happen? Verse 15. So when you see, he connect 14 with 15. Then the end will come. The gospel will proclaim. Then the end will come. Verse 15. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet stand in the holy place, let the reader understand. And then do you see that? Then look at verse 16. I'll kick it to the text. The King James version is up there. I'm sorry, I can't do the King James. I'm tied to my notes here with the ESV. Look at the ESV. It says this, right? Then when you see in verse 15, the prophet Daniel standing in the holy place, let the reader understand. Verse 16, then let those who are in Judah flee to the mountains. Specifically, right? When is he going to stand in the Holy of Holies and the abomination will makes desolate? Where will that take place? In Jerusalem, in Judea. And I think he's talking specifically when you see the Antichrist in the Holy of Holies, right? Those people who are in Judea, because the abomination which makes desolate, kicking it back out to the group, it will be in Judea. So he turns to people specifically, right? Let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Why? Because when he comes out of the Holy of Holies, he's going to start killing true believers. He's going to start slaughtering them. So those who are in Judea, here's the warning, flee to the mountains. Verse 17, let the one who is in the housetop, let me kick it back to the scriptures. Let the one who is on the housetop not go down to take what is in the house. And let the one who is in the field not turn back and take his cloak. And alas, for women who are pregnant and for those who are nursing infants in those days, pray that your flight may not take place in winter or on the Sabbath. So do you see? I think he's talking about, kicking it back out to the group, he's talking about specific things. He's not talking about 2,000 years the church has been preaching. I think he's talking specifically about those two witnesses in Jerusalem, because right after that, the Antichrist goes to the Holy of Holies, and he comes out and he starts wreaking havoc. He's answering a question about the end times. Kicking it back out to the panel, question, comments, as I look at the comments here on message. Hey, first of all, when you read that, because I read this for many years, that the gospel being preached to to all the nations in verse 14, did you all read it that way? That he's talking about the last 2,000 years that the church? You've always read it and talking about that 3.5 years?
No, I thought it was the 2,000 years.
I've always read it as the 2,000 years also. But I think he's talking specifically about the 3.5 years of being proclaimed to the nations.
Well, and it said in mine, it says, so that all nations will hear it. And isn't
right.
that, I think that's the predominant view, is that all tribes and all nations, all tongues, and why missionaries have so much zeal for getting to everybody.
Yep.
Because they want to help usher in Christ's return. So yeah, I think that's the predominant view. But when I read it this time, I think I must have been listening to you too long, Pastor James, that I think thought of exactly what you were saying.
Yeah, because he's answering the question about the end times. And so I think it fits here because he says, so when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of, right? Because remember, you have the 7-year tribulation, but you also have what Jesus calls the Great Tribulation. The Great Tribulation is those 3.5 years in which the Antichrist comes and just slaughters, right? That's the Great Tribulation. So,
and I also keep thinking of, God has been speaking mostly. God cut off Israel for a while.
Yes.
And the last 2,000 years, he's been
Correct.
speaking primarily through the church.
He has been speaking to the church.
Evangelistic in general at all.
Who's that? I'm sorry.
The Jewish people.
Correct.
Are not evangelistic.
No.
And I mean, I don't blame them. They've been persecuted for 2,000 years, but
every time they open their mouths, people want to kill them. Seems like,
or do nothing. But there will come, and it might be now that God is cutting off the church. He's turning back to the Jewish people, and they are going to be his primary. He's going to primarily through them at that point.
Well, if you read Revelation, it's the church age ends with the lampstands, but then you see the olive tree and the lampstands together in Revelation 2, and those two olive tree lampstand are the two witnesses, is that the church and Israel are now one. And
I guess I'm conflating that with being spit out of his mouth.
Yes, the church age, the church has failed, and so spitting out, he's rejecting the church. But the Gentile church, because you've got to remember, church and congregation is the same thing. The church, I believe, are all believers. And that was even true back in the Old Testament. So I think the church age, as we call it, is really the Gentile dominant church. And that's going to be rejected. Yes, Eric, because then I'm going to answer Lynn's question. Go ahead.
So I have for those of us who have grown up in the church or people that are new to the faith, eschatology, the end times, is very confusing.
It is.
When you talk about Daniel and then you're talking about this, you have studied, and in your mind you have a picture of the timeline.
Yes.
And it would be really helpful going forward, especially when we're doing these interactive things.
Yes.
Have a graph of as simply as possible of what that looks like, because
it ain't simple.
I told you before, when I was 7 or 8 years old and they played that movie at my church, it scared the living daylights out of me. I didn't want to study this stuff ever again. I mean, I figured if we're going to be all, raptured, why should I worry? And but obviously we're here now. But I mean, that would be really helpful, because I'm sure not everyone that's doing this tonight is clear, because I don't understand it.
No, I got you. And so let's use the live chat if there's something not clear, because you're right. It's clear in my mind. Sometimes I may assume too many things. Look at what Lynn says. Do you think that Jesus is changing gears in 15? No. I think he's going through the normal progression. In verse 14, when he's talking about the whole world, he's talking about the first 3.5 years. And then right after that, he's talking about the last 3.5 years, which will equal the 7-year tribulation. So I don't think he's changing gears. He's just talking about the 2 time periods of the 7-year tribulation. The first 3.5 years, the 2 prophets in Jerusalem. The second 3.5 years, the great tribulation. The 3.5, that brings together the 7-year tribulation. So it's a continuation in verse 15. The one he foretold of in verse 24, 2, yes. Antigone's, the fourth was Antigone's Epiphanes, which desecrated the temple. Before this, yes, that was back in AD. Many people think is a precursor, and those who are amillennialists think that he was the Antichrist. He was not. The Antichrist is a world figure who is going to lead a one world government. And then remember,
wait.
Go ahead.
That doesn't make sense.
What?
With these verses.
What? Oh, I know it doesn't. Antigone's Epiphanes?
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I know it doesn't. That's what I'm saying. But she says the temple may be a precursor to the ultimate Antichrist. Yes. I think it's a precursor. I don't even know if it's a precursor per se, but yeah, he did go and desecrate the temple. So that was probably a precursor. 70 AD is when he destroyed the temple. And yes, no, it was Titus. Okay, Titus in 70 AD, yes. But no, Antigone's Epiphanes was the one who actually went into the Holy of Holies and poured pig blood in there. So that was pre-Titus. Titus just simply destroyed the temple in Jerusalem.
That was during the time, was the intertestamental period.
Well, Antigone's? Antigonus? Yes.
Antiochus Epiphanes?
Yes.
I was going to...
I forget the exact
year.
It
was the time of the Maccabees and the...
It was before the Maccabees.
Yeah. That we don't have scripture for. Well, I mean, books are there, but not in our Bible.
All right. Anything before I go to verse 16? We'll do 16 through 20. Again, the King James will be up, but I'll be reading from the ESV. 16. Then let those who are in Jerusalem flee to the mountains. I said that. Let the one who's on the housetop. Oh, I read this already, didn't I? Let me switch gears to 21 through 25.
Well, hey,
Go ahead. I come back out to the group. Go ahead.
Is this supposed to be taken literally?
Be more specific.
A way of saying, don't waste time.
Be specific. Talking about the fleeing?
Don't even go down into your house to pack. Don't get a coat.
Yeah, don't take your time.
Take off.
Now, I think you can run down to the house, grab the Glock, and run out the door. But I think what he's saying is don't waste time packing, because when he comes out of the Holy of Holies, he's going to be looking for true believers to behead. Okay, I think that's what it means, right? Yeah. So verse 21. Verse 21. For then there will be great tribulation. There it is, the great tribulation, such as has not been from the beginning of the world until now. No, and never will be. The last 3.5 years of the 7-year tribulation will be the Antichrist specifically slaughtering true believers, right? And so he's saying this persecution of believers, it's never happened, never will. This will be the greatest persecution of true believers the world has ever seen and ever will see. The Antichrist when he comes out. Verse 22. And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would be saved. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Now, I read 22 and I wrestled with it. Let me kick it out to the group. What is your impression of verse 22? And if those days had not been cut short, no human being would have been saved. That's easy. Satan's whole desires to wipe out the human race. He hates all humans, and he's deceived all humans. He would love nothing better than to wipe out all humans, because Satan hates every human being, because we're made in the image of God and he's not. And I believe he became jealous. That's why he came down and did what he did in the garden. But here's the second part. But for the sake of the elect, those days will be cut short. Here's the way I take it. I think there's going to be some believers on the earth that are not going to die under the Antichrist. My dream was always to be martyred. Maybe my dream will be to wait them out. I don't know. Question, comments before I go back to the verse, before I pick it up in 23? Let's pick it up in 23. Then if anyone says to you, look, here is the Christ, or there he is, do not believe them. Again, I think he's talking in progression. I think it's going to be so bad, you're going to have false Christs arise. Verse 24, for false Christ and false prophets will arise and perform great signs and wonders, so as to lead astray, if possible, even the elect. See, verse 25, I have told you beforehand. I don't think, you know what? For the longest I read this and I thought Jesus was jumping around. I don't think Jesus is jumping around. I think he's talking about things that are going to be indicative of the tribulation. I think, and I think it's very clear. I think it's very possible that when the Antichrist comes out of the temple, you will have sects such as the Mormons or the Jehovah's Witnesses claiming, see, we're the truth. Follow us. And Jesus is saying, no. I think you're going to have cults claiming to be true Christians in the midst of the tribulation. I don't think he's switching gears.
What do you think the signs and wonders are going to be?
I think the signs and wonders are actually going to be the bowls and the trumpets and all the wrath that God is pouring down, that people are going to take credit for. Because at that time, there's going to have a lot of supernatural things going on, right? You're going to have a lot of supernatural things. And they very well could be taking credit for it. But there's going to be a lot of things going on supernatural at that time. Right?
Yeah, I was going to say, it might not just be supernatural things that God is. I mean, even now, you see supernatural things that happen and people take credit for, because there is spiritual warfare. I mean, there are spiritual things that go on, and some things don't come from God. They're from spiritual, enemies. So, I think even in the last 10 years, even the amount of people that do psychic readings and things like that.
They've uptick. Oh, absolutely.
Think about it, they may look like they're good things, some to the people that are looking for hope, but no,
they're evil.
Yeah.
Lee says this. I think Lee was referring to don't go down and take your coat. Does it mean not to waste time, but having faith in God's provisions that your needs will be met during your fleeing? She's talking about when he says don't even go down from the roof. Yeah, it says makes me think of the daily manna. Yeah, Lee, that could very well be it.
And also time. You don't have much time.
Yeah, you don't have much time. You got to get out of there. But we're going to be set up already in Wyoming, so we'll be good. But anyway, verse 26. Question, comments before we go to verse 26. We're going long here. 26. Yes. Let me kick it back out. Kick it there. Go ahead.
It's going to be vital that even as we're doing right now, going through Bible study, this word in our heart.
Say that again.
It's going to be important, imperative.
Yes.
We have to get this word inside of us.
Yeah.
Not simply to have it in case we don't have a Bible, but in order to be led by the Spirit when all this happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Be rooted solidly.
Yeah. No cramming for the final exam at that point.
Yeah.
It doesn't stick when you cram for those final exams.
No.
Little by little, it's like taking care of your health.
Yeah.
If you eat good things, then when you have that checkup, things look pretty good.
Yeah.
But you can't just do a crash diet right before you're supposed to do it.
Yeah. No, that doesn't work. Verse 26. So, if they say to you, look, he is in the wilderness, do not go out there. If they say, look, he is in the inner rooms, do not believe. See, I don't think he's changed. I think he's talking about the tribulation, right? Do not go into the inner rooms. Verse 27, for as the lightning comes from the east and shines as far as the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Verse 28, wherever the corpse is, there the vultures will gather. Do you see what he's doing? Look at what he's talking about. I think he's talking about, I'll kick it back out to the group. I think he's talking about in the midst of the great tribulation. You're going to have people saying, look at the crisis over there. Look at the crisis over there in the inner room out there. He says, don't believe him. Here's how you will know I am coming. He says, look, from the east to the west, when I come back the second time, everybody's going to know it. And then look what he does. He links, look at in 28, he links corpses and vultures to his coming. Why? Because when he comes back, there's going to be a lot of corpse. He's going to come back as a conquering king. He's going to come back with those swords coming out of his mouth. And there's going to be a lot of dead people when he comes back. And he says, so don't fall for he's in the inner room. Don't fall for he's out in the desert. Because when I come back, it won't be secret and it won't be peaceful. Right? Wherever the corpse is, let me kick it back out. Let me finish from 28. Wherever the corpse is, there the vultures are gathered. Immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light, and the stars will fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens will be shaken. Then and only then will appear in heaven the sign of the Son of Man, and then all the tribes of the earth will mourn, and they will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Let me ask the question. Maybe it's an obvious question. Look what he says in verse 30. He says, when he comes, all the tribes of the earth will mourn. Why? Why will all of the tribes of the earth mourn when he comes back? And I believe the answer is simply because they're going to be in rebellion against him. The whole world at that time, all nations will be united underneath the Antichrist. And when they see him coming, they're going to see him coming on a cloud, and they're going to look up and they're going to say, oh no, we lost. Here he comes. And they're going to be crying because at that time it's going to be very evident you lost. And all the tribes will mourn. They will mourn. They will mourn. Question, comments, verses 1 through 30. Linda McGowan, Armageddon. I gotta look at the Armageddon thing. But I would say yeah. I could look at it again.
Armageddon was at the end of the millennium.
That's what I'm debating. I gotta look at that. I gotta see where exactly it is. And I told Barbara I'd do that, and I still haven't gotten around to it. John, there is and will be many signs and wonders, false, in Thessalonians, and here we are being told this will happen. I've seen a lot of it, but most likely not even the tip of the iceberg. Correct. John James, in today's world, we are being offered peace without repentance or forgiveness. That is the church. That's the health, wealth, and prosperity gospel right there. Turn on any channel, and there it is. Correct. Lynn, doesn't verse 30 indicate that his church is going to be with him? Only the earth dwellers will be crying. No, it says, I think the tribe, I think the nations will be united against him, because if we keep reading, I think the church is going to be there. Jim, will there be believers left when Jesus comes? Good question. Lynn, I think the next portion answers that. I think the next one answers that. Let me see here. Look at verse 31. Let me kick it to the text. Look at verse 31. And he will send out his angels with a loud trumpet, and they will gather his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. See, there you go. Verse 11, I think he's going to send his angels out to collect his elect. His elect are still there. And all elect underneath heaven, they're going to go and they're going to gather, which leads me to believe, again, I thought all believers were going to die under the Antichrist. Maybe not so. Maybe not so.
Well, maybe, is there a possibility that there would be some people that would be saved during that time?
Very well, possibly, yes.
I mean,
yes.
if they're killing Christians,
Mm-hmm.
Usually when there's persecution, other people that are lost go, wow,
Yep.
God's spirit moves.
Yep. And they're going to be obviously false teachings, but I do believe they're going to be real Christians. They're dying. Now, to answer your question, Jim, yes, there will be believers left when still on earth when Jesus comes. Verse 31 makes that clear. The only question or quote unquote debate is, were they there all 3.5 years, or were they new converts? Right? Were they new converts? Again, my position, it is an in-house debate. I do not believe the church is raptured up. I believe in the second coming, not a second and third coming. So I only think Jesus comes back one more time, the second coming. And I think he comes back at the end of the 7-year tribulation. I think some of the readings in Revelation says that. But let me kick it out. We're going long. Let me kick back out to the text here. Verse 32. Look at this. Look what Jesus says. From the fig tree, learn its lesson. As soon as its branches becomes tender and puts out its leaves, you know that summer is near. So also, when you see all these things, you know that he is near at the very gates. Truly I say to you, this generation will not pass away until all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will not pass away. Look at those verses right there. Those verses, even there, tends to lead me to believe that the church is there and that Jesus is expecting his church to go through. That's why he's giving the warnings, right? Lynn, she says this, he gathers them from heaven. They seem to be already up there. If they're dead and they're in heaven, then he doesn't need angels to gather them, Lynn, the way I read it. I think it's from under heaven. Yeah. Gathers his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. I think a lot of the language under heaven, I think he's talking about on earth here. But again, if they're dead and they're spiritual beings at that point, angels don't need to gather them. They're already spirit. So, but at least that's the way I read it. Again, it is an in-house debate. But
Eric's got something.
Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry.
It seems to me that God has always kept a remnant. From Genesis to Revelation, he has always kept a remnant.
Yeah.
Obviously, the qualifications of the remnant is that they have been as faithful as possible. Now, he, in the earlier verses, told his people to flee to the mountains.
Yep.
Why would...
Oh, you're right.
Why would I think...
I see where you're going.
Run and they get eliminated.
You're right. If they were raptured, he wouldn't have to warn them. Wait a minute.
What happened to them? I guess that's my question. So, what happened to the ones
what happened to one's fleet? Oh, I thought you were going to say if they've been raptured and they're already in heaven, he wouldn't have to warn them to run.
Well, that's cool. I mean, brother, you got me. Okay, I'm past that. Yeah.
Okay. No. I got you. But where do they run, Eric? They run to Montana with their ARs and they set up shop and hopefully they can wait them out. That's why I think they run. Hey, that's just that. Hey, that's just me. I could be wrong, but hey, Jesus said it. He said go run,
Judea, not Montana.
huh?
They go to Judea.
No, he said those in Judea
Right.
run, because when he comes out, he's going to be in Judea and he's going to start killing in Judea, and I think his killing is going to spread worldwide, even to Chicago. But by the time he comes to Chicago, we're going to be in the hills. But anyway, let me kick it to the text and end it, verse 36 to the end. But concerning that day and hour, no one knows. So he just warned us about the season, right? He didn't say specific days. He just told us about the season. And then he's going to clarify, verse 36, but concerning that day or hour, no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, nor the Son, but the Father only. As were the days of Noah, verse 37, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Verse 38. Hold on. Yep, verse 38. Verse 38. For as in those days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day when Noah entered the ark. Verse 39. And they were unaware until the flood came and swept them all away. So will be the coming of the Son of Man. Kick it back out to the group as we close. Again, the last thing. So here's one of the good, how can I say that? Good arguments against arguments pro pre-trib rapture, that it's going to happen and we won't know. But I think the day of the Lord and the Daniel 70th week is seen as one unit. The 7 years is seen as 1 week. And I think when they talk about his second coming, in some sense, in some context, that's what they're talking about. Real quick, let me get the comments, and then we'll kick it out to the group and we'll close. Eric, Lynn says, Eric, that's why I thought Jesus was talking about the destruction of the temple in 70 AD instead of the end of the age, but I could be wrong. Here's what happened. Here's one thing we do know about 70 AD, right? One, there was no, Titus, first of all, did not go into the Holy of Holies. He was never considered the Antichrist or the abomination which makes desolate. Titus besieged Jerusalem, right? And so by the time Titus came, they couldn't run. Jerusalem was already besieged. So one, they couldn't run. Two, Titus never went into the Holy of Holies. He was never considered to be an Antichrist figure. Antigone's Epiphanes was, but that was hundreds of years earlier. John says this, all to say he endures to the ends will be saved. We must endure. In Scottish accent, it's endure. Gotcha. Did I do right with that, John? Endure. Lauren Cho, hello, this is Iljan. Lynn is right. In that context, it is about the temple destruction, which is one of the sharp birth pains. By 29, it's about the parousia, the coming. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Iljan is referring to.
I think he's talking about verse 29, right?
The destruction of the temple in 70 AD. I don't know which one. I think at the very beginning, when Jesus is talking about not one stone will be left on its head. Yes, that was about the destruction of the temple. Titus comes in 70 AD and levels the temple. Absolutely levels it. Yeah. So, yeah, that was about Titus. But going into the Holy of Holies and coming out, that was Antigone's Epiphanes 100 years earlier. So we've been going at it for almost an hour. Any last questions? So you know what? Maybe this is, as time goes on, let's just put it this way. If they try to shut this country down through May, which is what I'm hearing a lot want, through May 31st, then there's going to be a lot of talk about apocalypse in the end days if they try to keep this country shut down until then. But depending on how long this goes, maybe we do more stuff about the end days or the eschatology, so that people are not deceived, right? Maybe we'll do that. And so let me know. Send me an email. Let me know what would be most helpful for these these Bible studies here on Wednesday. Anything else before I kick it over to the bumper music? Terry, you good?
I'm good.
Lisa Joy, you good?
Yeah, I was just thinking, the verses when I was growing up, my dad and the church I went to spoke a lot of, preparing yourself for the end days. Be always talking about that. And I don't hear that a lot today. There's a lot of churches you go in and you probably wouldn't even have anyone bring it up. And the verse that he would always say is like, that verse that says, for the coming of the Son of Man will be just like the days of Noah. And there's another, I think that's somewhere else as well in scripture where it talks about the things that were occurring in that day. And we see it so much around us, the breakdown of the family and the taking on of not just marriage the way God would have it, and it's just destroying people. And I go, for those of us that know the Lord, it's this time where we go, you know what? It's time to talk to people that we know and give them hope, because God right now is, well, he always has been, but it's very evident that he's our only hope.
I want to respond to Vinny. Vinny. I'm sorry, Vinny. Hamed think he's on the phone. He thinks we can hear. Hey, Hamed, we do hear you. We do hear you. Hamed. Hey, I hear you. I heard you the whole time. So there you go. Hamed. Yeah.
Last time he was in church, he just gave Pastor the dirtiest look. It was so.
Yeah. Hamed. Here you go. Okay. All right. So we do hear you, buddy. No, we don't really, but that's okay. I know it's getting. Yes, an hour is too short, Lynn. Maybe we can do sometimes outside of Wednesday if this is a topic that people are more interested in. I think, Barb, the talk of rapture has caused the church to be asleep. That could very well be true, Barb. Yeah. Okay, Eric. So Lisa Joy is good. Eric, you good? Okay, let's kick it out. Thank you so much, Lisa Joy, Eric, and Terry. Thank you all for being in here. We won't do prayer tonight. Yeah, let's do prayer on another night. We'll open it up because I got to look at this Zoom stuff. So, all right. Any prayer requests, you can always send them via email, and we'll pray. Oh, what's the day? Wednesday? Oh,
Wednesday the 8th.
Andrew.
Tomorrow, I think.
It's tomorrow, yeah.
The doctor's appointment. I talked to them today.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, I know they have one Tuesday, and then we're going to have one Thursday.
Have Thursday, and they probably know what day.
Yes, they're going to schedule that C-section real soon. And he said that they may go in either one of those days, and they send her straight to the hospital.
Right.
And take it off. So keep those two in your prayer. Well, keep those three in your prayers.
Yeah.
And we'll continue to pray. Hey, we continue to collect bags of rice and some other things, just in case people need food in the future. Okay. Okay. And you just text me that he and Jess are watching. Thank you. So here we are. We'll see you this Sunday, Resurrection Sunday. We'll hopefully have some song, and we'll have a resurrection message, and we'll see you guys.
Are we going to have a Good Friday message or devotional?
That's a good question. Maybe so. Okay, we'll talk about it. Maybe so. Their appointment, pray for it. Andrew and Jessica's appointment tomorrow is at 11:50. Okay. All right. Thank you. God bless. New Hope. We'll see you soon.
Love you guys.
Bye, guys. Good to see you.
Though the nations rage, kingdoms rise and fall, there is still one King reigning over I will not fear, for this truth remains, that my God is the Ancient of Days.